Hi everybody, welcome back to Love Money Venus. I'm Emily, I'm your astrologer. We are here at the start of a big weekly forecast. We've been waiting for this week for a while. We're going through December 13th to December 19th. There's a lot of astrology, most of it isn't good, but this is a pivotal week to a lot of changes that we're going to be seeing through the end of the month and the beginning of the year. So let's get right into it. We're going to open the week with Mars just moving into Sagittarius. Mars in Sag is going to be really good. It's boisterous, bombastic energy. And eventually, when Mars gets comfortable, it's going to feel really good after everything we've been through with Mars in Scorpio, squaring Saturn in Aquarius over a month, and both of them have been in domicile as strong as they can possibly be. Mars doesn't have like any dignity or detriment in Sagittarius, so it's pretty much as close as you can get to a malefic neutralized. But the big problem here is one, the ingress itself. It's moving from the 29th degree to the 1st degree. Planets do not ingress without moves in the market, normally to the downside. It's a period of instability when literally a season of that planet is changing. And in this case, it's extra heightened by the presence of the South Node at 1 degree Sagittarius. So just like we saw the Sun hit that point and then have a market crash, and then Mercury, which was even bigger, market and Bitcoin down at the same time. And now we have Mars, and this is very possibly the worst of the three, because this is unlikely to just come with market crashes. I keep saying crashes. I mean corrections, drops, dips. We'll see. This has happened before, this specific aspect, and come with like the market being closed altogether and not able to reopen. We have Venus and Pluto exactly conjunct. They're being squared by an Aries moon. That Aries moon on its own is, just an absolutely chaotic time for the markets. So we have that to deal with, and we also have Mercury moving into Capricorn. Mercury has just moved into Capricorn, so that is the planet that is most responsible for the markets and their movement. When Mercury is slow, the markets are sluggish. When Mercury is going really fast, there tends to be quick growth. You're not waiting to see a price go one way or another. When Mercury's retrograde, the market is very changeable. It can change on, every couple of days as far as what the trend is, or it can just be a complete reversal from where it is. But Mercury and the markets are very closely intertwined, so Mercury is bringing his own earthquakes on top of this because he's just made his way into Capricorn, where Venus and Pluto are currently living. So we have one more planet in the sign of the establishment with some of the heaviest centralized energy for the rest of the month as well. Sorry. Tuesday, the energy is still building with the Mars and South Node. That's going to be kind of a developing story through Wednesday. So I don't know if I've made it clear, but I don't see green on Monday or Tuesday. Maybe there's a little chance of that, but I do see it's possible. I think the red is definitely guaranteed for the markets, or at least from this astrology. Sometimes Bitcoin and crypto can move inverse to that. I'm not ruling out the possibility. I personally haven't seen anything in Bitcoin's astrology that says it's definitely going to go down or it's definitely going to go up. So I think it's really going to be answering more to the general planets in the sky. And at this point, I think it's down, which isn't a bad thing when we get to the end of the week, and you will see why. But now we're going to move into Tuesday. The moon is moving into Taurus, and it's trining Mercury in an Earth trine from Taurus to Capricorn. But then it's about to conjunct Uranus, the anarchist. So even though it's a trine, I don't know if that really has any chance to help anything. Yeah, these are just tumultuous skies. This isn't the day to take unnecessary risks. You have to be very guarded with your own choices, because these are not stars that give take-backs. And then the Mercury's quincunx the North Node. That looks like a fated correction, sort of, that is a plunge for a greater good. So we'll see. I still think it looks like a red day, unfortunately. I'm sorry that I don't have better news. Wednesday, we have the Taurus moon hitting a sextile to Neptune in Pisces. A nice uplifting energy. It's a sextile, so it's not quite as positive as a trine. It's an opportunity to see things from another angle. After a lot of heaviness in the week, maybe a chance to integrate everything. But I don't think anything else really changes. Venus is pulled past Pluto a little bit, but she's stationing retrograde. So all of that energy is still very much in play. And Mercury is now out of his semi-sextiles to Mars in the South Node and getting comfortable in Capricorn. So the general conversation around everything is very serious, very sober, very concerned with security for the future. Capricorn Mercury is going to be much better. It's going to be much easier for me to film when I need to film once Mercury is out of Sagittarius, because right now I can barely put together complete sentences. It is such in detriment. I just want to like gesture wildly and kind of give you the big picture, which really wouldn't work at all with this kind of astrology. So I'm looking forward to it for that. We're going to go ahead and move on to Thursday. It's going to move into Gemini, which is where we have our full moon in a couple of days, which is where everything starts to change. Okay, here we go. But before it can do that, again, it has to oppose this whole mess with the South Node and Mars, which has separated a little bit, but still close enough to be problematic, and conjunct the North Node. Even though this full moon is a little bit far from the nodes to be considered an eclipse, this right here is it's a flash of the future. It's a moment of clarity. I mean, Friday, the biggest thing that's going on, the moon is getting closer to full, and the sun is semi-sextile Venus Saturday. So by this point, I do think, even if there's been ups and downs, I think Bitcoin is still pretty depressed, if not very depressed, from a drop right around the 13th, 14th, and 15th because of whatever comes from the Mars South Node conjunction. But we start to have better news when it comes into this full moon, because quite like our new moon solar eclipse, it is in the same sign as the nodes. So there is kind of that ecliptic energy. And where the solar eclipse was our perigee moon, the moon that is closest to the earth and most excitable to humanity because we can feel the impact that much more. And then the moon was moving out of bounds, which we said back then was 3 different trigger spots of a change of trend, a big change of trend. In that case, it was to the downside. This is pretty much the opposite, but the same. We have the Apogee Moon, which is the moon that is furthest from the Earth. So we are least connected to its certainty and fortitude and like all of the emotional stability that the moon can give us when it's in ideal placement. So this is often something that comes along with either the lowest point of a trend or a trend starting to fall, because this is when humanity in general is going to be the most likely to be tempted into selling everything. It's kind of like a fearful, like nervous state, right? And then just like we had at the new moon solar eclipse, we have the moon going straight out of bounds. Now, I want to be clear, and I've been working on a video showing this with Bitcoin. The apogee, the full moon, and the out of bounds phase, there's no guarantee that those 3 things come together. And there is a bigger conversation to be had about all that really cool lunar exchange. But right now, all you need to know is those 3 things are piling up on each other when that is not a promised situation. And again, it really does look like Bitcoin specifically, because this is happening when the markets are closed. Bitcoin, crypto, take a turn and shoot up, I would say. I don't know if that's a trend that can be continued. I am less bearish about Bitcoin than I was in the beginning of all this, thinking that the end of December and going into January was going to be just a really bad, dark time for crypto. But I'm starting to have doubts about that, and I will be getting into that in later videos. I just don't think December has the astrology that comes with all-time highs. Even the meme stocks that I think are going to get an upper hand from this astrology, from the Venus-Pluto retrograde, I don't think that you're going to see that take major hold until closer to the end of the month anyways. This is moving into a less beneficial phase for AMC and GameStop. The moon phase is less beneficial. Okay, Sunday is the day that Venus goes retrograde. So one more sign that now we are coming to the end of something and we're moving in the opposite direction. Venus turning retrograde is going to be bringing recent decisions around love and money back into your frame of view. Especially with Pluto conjunct, there is a big possibility that you tried to throw your weight around too much. You spent too heavy. You thought you were going to have more disposable cash than you ended up having. You thought you had more power over your partner than you actually did. There is something on the personal level. This is kind of like having to review recent decisions and now figure out how to deal with the aftershocks of those decisions. And the same thing on the meta scale when it comes to the mundane astrology for how it affects the world leaders and the market makers and, you know, major players in our economy. Everything that they have been doing, whether they have been behind the scenes pressing unfair advantages, illegal activity, anything like that. Like, that is stuff that is all now available to be exposed and disseminated by the public. The Sun sextile Jupiter is bringing a reason to celebrate. The only thing that looks complicated on Sunday is the Cancer Moon, which I always say, the Cancer Moon triggers Elon Musk's Cancer Mercury, and every single time it is hysterical. I'll see some kind of tweets from him. The last couple of rounds didn't crash everything the way that he sometimes intends to, but he did. I think in this last one, he got into a fight with the founder of Binance, and it was a good time had by all. So we'll see whether or not that crashes. This does look like it's fairly good news, especially from where we've been coming from. So another thing that I wanted to point out is that inflation levels are nearing like the last all-time high of where inflation was in January 1982. Venus was also going retrograde again. This is a time when you do not have the disposable income that you think that you do. And even if you do, you should live like you do not, because there are too many surprises. There's too many corners that you're not going to be able to see around. And this is reversed energy, which means at some point Venus has to go direct again and come right back to this point that she's been over 3 times. And again, the decisions that you have made in this retrograde period come up for review. And because that is happening on top of Pluto, the planet of transformation, it's not just a reversal, it is a full-blown like reworking, like makeover of whatever circumstances that you were in. So just from like a planetary magic standpoint, the best way to work with this energy is to be hyper cautious and super austere, which doesn't sound like a lot of fun for a Christmas season. But there are other reasons to consider maybe not going as wild this year as normal. I've seen a lot of apes on Twitter talking about hodling through the holidays. That is a thing. I have been talking about the need to do that. That's actually one of the most beneficial side effects of this entire campaign, is that so many of us have held on to money that we would have just blown through by keeping it in our brokerages while we fight this fight with Citadel, you know? So there has been, I know I'm not the only person that has had their entire relationship to money changed by that. This is a moment where, even though it has been a long year, that the reward of seeing that through is greater than it's ever been. But I cannot impress upon you enough, when Venus goes direct, if there has been money mismanagement, if you have made bad decisions with your stocks, if you have been living outside of your means, if you've been promising partners, you know, changes that you really weren't prepared to make, whatever it is in the realms of love and money, what we value, what pleases us, how we attract, you need to be very conscientious. Please don't waste your money while Venus is retrograde. Be careful, save it, don't raid your brokerages. For the most part, I really feel like your moves in December should be made by this point. But do remember, if you're actually trading these things, these are a lot of scary signals. But when they come, if you're holding something that's getting plundered by like all of this downward motion and the beginning of the week's astrology, that's not the time to sell, even if you are so scared. At most, if you had, you know, the dry powder, that would be the time to be picking up those assets. Regardless of what this week puts you through emotionally, just like every good trader, you have to be prepared to do the opposite. When you are most ecstatic about your stocks, when you are the most like overjoyed, they're going to go on forever, it's never going to go back down, that's the moment that you sell. You know, when you are absolutely absolutely like in a panic. Where is it crashing to? What's going to happen? And everything on your timeline is doing the same. Like the fear and greed index, right, is at its high. That's the time to buy, where your natural instinct is trying to push you into getting rid of absolutely everything that you have because you might lose it all. So this is like a lot of astrology really trying to take you away from those core concepts. You can hold on to all of the Capricorn energy to remind you of like what the you in 2022 would hope that the decisions that you would be making for yourself in the new year, you know, that you're going to look back on and be like, I'm so glad you did that. There's a reward. There's a lot to be gained here for anybody who can keep a hold of their appetites and their impulses for longer term gain, longer term beauty, for luxury in exchange for like momentary indulgence, something that's super fleeting. This is about worth that you can hold on to and take for a very long time, but none of that can ever be gained without patience and being able to see like when it is just not a worthwhile endeavor to put your money or your heart into a situation that doesn't have a good ROI. And this is also going to be a time where if you are in a relationship that can't take care of you, if you are financially stretched too far, you know, and something has to change and you've been avoiding those changes, if you are doing fine, but you've been spending money at a record pace because you just haven't had to think about it, something might happen to make you have to think about it. And that's not a bug, it's a feature. That is what this astrology is here to do. And it's very important because by the time Jupiter gets into Pisces at the end of the month and then starts, you are not going to be able to control your optimism. You are going to be so hyper bullish on everything under the sun. Nobody will be able to talk you out of it. Only the tools that you have gained in this time are going to save you from that. So go ahead and take advantage of another really hard, gnarly week. Protect yourselves. Keep your money safe. Be very prudent with decisions. And next week, after that full moon on Sunday, things switch around again. So I know that you guys like to have everything kind of like wrapped up more succinctly. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, somewhere in there, I'm expecting geopolitical strife and big red in all the markets, coins and stocks. Okay, moving into Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, it gets a little bit more nebulous. It's really hard to say, but there isn't a ton to look like it's good news, but there may be some like green shoot ups in that time as the moon moves into more favorable positions. Saturday and Sunday, most likely Sunday, for crypto, not for the markets because they will not be open, we should be seeing some kind of reversal and a bounce to come with it, with the full moon that is also apogee and about to move out of bounds. So even if it's just been boring still movement for that entire time, we should see a trend reversal. If it has been unusually high, Bitcoin or any of the coins following, then they could be going down. But it really does look like they're starting from down to up. So we will meet again next week. I'm so glad you guys came back. I really hope this helps you in some way. I will keep up these weekly forecasts and start looking forward to 2022 because what we want to be ready to make our moves before the year comes in. Okay? Everybody stay safe out there. I will see you here next week.